The Silver Fork Diner glowed weakly against the stormy dusk, its neon sign sputtering like it was gasping for life. Inside, Ava wiped the last table, the scent of burnt coffee clinging to the air. The jukebox crooned an old country tune that sounded lonelier with every verse. Her manager, Carl, leaned by the counter, pretending to read receipts while watching her through the reflection in the window. Rain lashed against the glass when the door swung open. A man stepped in, soaked, silent, hollow-eyed. His boots left dark prints across the tile. He didn't glance at the menu. "The special," he said, his voice rough as gravel. Ava hesitated. No one had ordered that in months. Carl's smirk tightened, and he gave her a slow nod. The kitchen light flickered when she pushed through the swinging door, her hands trembling around the order slip. The smell hit her first, metallic, heavy, almost alive. Something dripped from the freezer latch, too dark to be water. She steadied herself, whispering, "Just meat. Just another night." But the hum from the back room deepened, like something breathing beneath the floor. Before we head inside the Silver Fork Diner, a little warning: some customers never made it past dessert. If you're brave enough to stay till the end, prove it. Tap that like button now. Let's see how long your appetite lasts. Morning crept into the diner through greasy blinds, painting thin bars of light across the counter. Ava refilled coffee cups, her motions automatic, her smile brittle. The regulars barely looked up, truckers hunched over plates, nurses lost in thought. When she moved toward the door to hang a receipt, something caught her eye, a missing persons flyer pinned to the corkboard. The face belonged to Lila, the waitress Carl once said had moved down south. Her chest tightened. The paper trembled in the air vent's breeze. By closing time, whispers began. The cook muttered that a trucker had vanished last week, last seen parked outside their diner. Later, Carl called her into the kitchen, saying the freezer was running low and to double the specials. His tone was casual, but his eyes lingered too long. Ava turned away, catching her reflection in the chrome door, two versions of herself staring back, one terrified, the other ready to fight. That night, the diner was silent, emptied of chatter and clinking plates. Only the flicker of neon seeped through the blinds, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ava waited until the sign outside dimmed, then slipped through the kitchen door. Her phone light quivered in her grip as she descended the narrow concrete steps. The air thickened with every step. The hum below deepened, mechanical yet disturbingly alive. At the freezer door, frost spread across its metal surface like veins. One deep breath, and she pulled it open. A rush of cold air bit her skin. The smell followed, rancid, heavy, wrong. Inside, shapes hung in the dim blue light. At first, she thought they were slabs of meat. Then she saw shoes, name tags, strands of hair frozen mid-motion. Her knees nearly buckled. Behind her, the hum shifted, footsteps. Carl's voice came smooth and cold. "Now you've seen what keeps this place running." The freezer door slammed shut, swallowing her scream. Ava woke to the sting of ice against her skin, breath fogging in shallow bursts. Outside the metal door, Carl's voice drifted through the vent, calm, almost gentle. "You think you're different," he said. "I found the same thing once. Tried to stop it. But this place doesn't let go of its own." His words echoed through the hum of the freezer. Ava pressed her palms against the wall, skin freezing to metal. Her eyes darted to a broken meat hook on the floor, rusted, sharp. She gripped it tight. "Then it's time it lets go of you," she whispered. With all her strength, she jammed the hook into the latch. The door groaned, then burst open in a rush of frost and light. Carl stumbled back, his fury twisting his face. He lunged. She swung. Metal clattered, the sound swallowed by the roar of the generator. Ava shoved him hard, slammed the door shut, and locked it. The hum faded. His voice turned into a muffled scream, then silence. Morning light poured through spotless windows, painting the diner in gold. The Silver Forks neon sign glowed steady now, no flicker, no hiss. Fresh paint gleamed where rust once spread, and the scent of coffee, not fear, filled the air. Ava stood behind the counter in a crisp uniform, her name stitched neatly above the word manager. Customers trickled in, locals, travelers, all greeted with her quiet smile. Outside, a news van reported on the diner's new beginnings. On the counter, a candle burned beside a folded napkin marked with the names of the missing. Ava adjusted it gently, a silent promise. She served a plate of pancakes and steaming coffee to a trucker at the corner booth. "The special," she said softly. "No secrets this time." As she stepped into her office, sunlight spilled across the floor. The familiar hum beneath the diner was gone, replaced by peace. They say the diner's freezer never turned on again, but sometimes, late at night, the neon hums all by itself. Maybe Ava isn't the only one left behind. What do you think she really found in there? Leave your thoughts below, and before you check the next story, hit subscribe. You'll want the lights on for this one.
Story 2. The Rusted Spoon.
Marla balanced 2 trays at once, weaving through the tight maze of booths and bar stools with a smile that felt more like armor. A man at the counter waved his plate in the air, the sound of metal striking porcelain cutting through the chatter. "This ain't chicken," he barked, his tone soaked in contempt. He was large, red-faced, the kind of man who thought volume made him right. The piece of meat on his plate was barely touched. "You people think you can serve anything and call it food," he added, loud enough for everyone to hear. Marla's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone even. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll fix that right away." He sneered. "Cheap diner, cheap staff." Her hand clenched around the order pad, knuckles whitening. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but she swallowed it back. Instead, she turned and walked toward the kitchen, her reflection bending in the metal pass-through as she pushed through the swinging door. Inside, the heat was heavier. The scent of burned oil hung in the air, layered with something else, something that didn't belong. Her manager, Todd, leaned against the counter, watching with a grin that never reached his eyes. "Customers always right," he said. "Even when they're wrong." His laughter was sharp, slicing through the kitchen noise. Marla muttered an acknowledgement, tossing the uneaten food into the trash. Steam rose from the sink as she rinsed a plate, trying to scrub away the man's words. Todd whistled behind her, unbothered, counting tips that weren't his. She wanted out. Out of the diner, out of this town, out of the endless cycle of grease and insults. She'd once dreamed of becoming a health inspector, exposing places like this, but dreams cost money, and hers had run out. As she wiped the counter, something caught her eye, a small glass jar beside the spice rack, half filled with a dark, oily substance that shimmered when the light hit it. The label read only RP, no brand, no ingredients. It looked wrong. The cook, Ray, noticed her staring and moved fast, snatching it away. "Don't touch that," he said sharply, voice low. His hand trembled slightly as he tucked the jar into a cabinet. Marla frowned. "What is it?" "House blend," he muttered. "None of your business." The sound of sizzling meat swallowed the moment. She returned to her station, uneasy. The smell of that jar lingered, metallic, faintly sweet, like copper left in rain. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon, the storm inching closer. She glanced toward the window, where streaks of lightning flickered in the distance. Somewhere deep in her chest, she felt a quiet pull, the kind that comes before everything changes. And if you think the worst thing that can happen in a diner is a bad meal, wait till you see what's really cooking. Stay close, and don't forget to like and subscribe, you'll want the lights on for this one. The morning light cut through the diner's greasy blinds, painting the counter in stripes of gold and dust. Marla stood behind it, tying her apron tighter, her eyes still heavy from a sleepless night. The clatter of pots, the hum of the fridge, all the same routine, yet the air felt off, thicker somehow. She began prepping for the lunch rush, slicing onions, humming quietly to herself, anything to keep her mind from replaying yesterday's unease. When she reached the supply shelf, her hand froze mid-reach. The same jar she'd seen last night wasn't alone anymore. There were more now, a neat row of identical glass containers, each one marked with the same faded label, RP. The oily black liquid inside shimmered like it was breathing. Her stomach turned. The cook, Ray, stood by the stove, stirring a massive pot of stew. Without hesitation, he scooped a spoonful from one of the jars and dumped it in. The liquid sank into the mix, vanishing like ink in water. Marla stepped closer. "What is that stuff?" Ray didn't look up. "Company blend," he said flatly. His tone was too even, like he was repeating something rehearsed. "Todd says it saves money. Boosts flavor." The smell hit her, not the warmth of herbs or garlic, but something metallic, almost electrical, hidden beneath. It made her tongue taste like pennies. She turned away, pressing her lips together, pretending not to gag. By noon, the diner was packed. The regulars who used to complain about the food were suddenly scraping their bowls clean. Todd moved between tables, all charm and shine. "Business is booming," he said later that afternoon, tossing envelopes onto the counter. He gave one to each cook with a self-satisfied grin. "Keep up the good work." When Marla opened hers, it was empty. Todd smirked. "You'll get yours when you learn to mind your station." That night, she searched the initials online. Only one thing appeared, a flashing pop-up, restricted product, classified distribution. The warning glared back like an omen. The hum in her apartment grew louder, syncing with her heartbeat. The diner slept under the weight of midnight. Marla crept inside, flashlight trembling. The storeroom loomed with stacked boxes marked RP, green light bleeding through the seams. Inside, she found sealed packets twitching under plastic, alive, glowing faintly. The hum in the air grew deeper, almost breathing. She froze as Todd appeared behind her, his smile stretched too wide. "You always wanted to be an inspector," he said softly. "Guess you finally got your inspection." The storm outside flashed white through the window. Marla's grip tightened on a metal ladle. She knew then, the diner wasn't serving food anymore. It was feeding something else. The next day, the diner bustled like nothing had happened. Todd laughed with a health official as he stamped "approved" on his form, sliding an envelope across the counter. "See how easy it is," he whispered. But that night, Marla returned with her phone camera rolling. She filmed everything. The jars, the roaches, the spoiled oil, and uploaded it all before leaving her resignation note on the counter. Todd's voice cut through the silence. "You think they'll believe you? They already paid me." She faced him, calm. "Maybe. But the internet doesn't take bribes." Sirens grew near, echoing through the storm. Weeks later, the sign outside gleamed new, "Marla's Place, honest food, honest hands." Morning light filled the diner, warm and clean. Marla served real coffee, real meals, no secrets. A news clip on the TV mentioned her story, "Waitress exposes illegal contraband supplier network." She smiled faintly, placing pancakes before a customer. Outside, the neon glowed steady, no flicker, no hum, no lies. Just sunlight. Just redemption. They say every diner's got a special, but what if you were the ingredient? Think you'd have done what Marla did, or kept the secret for a little extra cash? Tell me below, leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you dare, stay tuned for what's coming next after you have liked and subscribed, because the next story's truth might just bite back.
Story 3. It's ours to keep.
After the last guest left, the dining room glowed with a soft amber haze, reflections from the chandeliers dancing on half-filled wine glasses and polished cutlery. The jazz music hummed faintly through the speakers, a saxophone whispering to no one. It was closing time, and the restaurant was shedding its performance mask. Ethan wiped down the last table with slow, careful movements, his motions almost ritualistic. He liked this hour, when the noise faded, and it was just him, the smell of wine, and the faint sting of bleach. Most nights, he worked in silence, listening to the rhythm of his own breath. Tonight, though, there was a weight in the air. A hush beneath the hum. Behind the swinging kitchen doors, laughter erupted, harsh, jagged, and too loud for the late hour. The sound broke the quiet spell of the dining room. Marcus, the sous chef, was probably cracking one of his crude jokes again, the kind that made Dana's laugh sound more like a dare than amusement. Ethan glanced toward the door but didn't move. He wasn't part of that circle. He never had been. Over the last few weeks, the kitchen staff had changed. Not in faces, but in energy. Marcus, Dana, Luis, and Tasha, once a group of harmless complainers, had become secretive, whispering at odd hours, huddling together when they thought no one was looking. Their laughter stopped whenever Ethan walked in, their eyes flickering his way with something between suspicion and disdain. He tried not to take it personally. Restaurants were full of gossip and cliques. Still, the unease had roots, deep ones. Before we begin, remember this, the quietest souls often carry the loudest secrets. If you dare to keep listening, press that subscribe button now, but don't be surprised if, by the end, you start watching the shadows differently. The office door opened suddenly. Mr. Caldwell stepped out, his presence slicing through the room like a cold draft. He was a man built of sharp edges. Silver hair slicked back, eyes always calculating. Even in his 60s, he carried himself like someone still fighting to prove a point. "Marcus," he barked, voice echoing. "That halibut tonight? Overcooked again. You call yourself a sous chef?" The laughter behind the doors went silent. Dana leaned against the counter, rolling her eyes. "It was fine, sir." Caldwell turned sharply toward her. "It was dry. And fine isn't good enough here." Ethan kept his gaze down, still wiping the same spot on the table, pretending not to hear. He'd seen this scene too many times, Caldwell humiliating someone, the others glaring behind forced smiles. The boss was cruel, yes, but fair in his own twisted way. He built this place from nothing. He demanded perfection because he believed chaos would destroy it. And in a place like the Velvet Fork, he wasn't entirely wrong. Caldwell's gaze fell briefly on Ethan. "At least someone here knows how to clean properly." Ethan gave a faint nod. "Thank you, sir." The old man grunted, muttered something about payroll, and disappeared back into his office, the door slamming shut. The moment it did, a chorus of mocking whispers erupted from the kitchen. "Knows how to clean," Marcus sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Perfect little Ethan. Ethan didn't respond. He gathered the used napkins into a bin and started stacking chairs. He'd learned long ago that silence was safer than defense. As the minutes ticked by, the laughter returned, lower this time, darker. The kitchen smelled of burnt onions and something metallic. Dana's voice carried over the clatter of pots, "He'll get what's coming to him. Sooner than he thinks." Ethan frowned. He wasn't sure if she meant Caldwell or someone else, but there was venom in her tone. The clock above the bar read 11:52 p.m. The restaurant should have been locked by now. Yet no one seemed eager to leave. The others lingered, murmuring, drinking the leftover wine meant for tomorrow's service. Ethan finished mopping, his reflection rippling in the wet floor. He didn't notice how quiet the laughter had become until he heard his name. "Ethan," Dana called from the kitchen, voice sweet and sharp at once. "You almost done out there?" "Almost," he said without looking up. "Good," she replied. "We're just talking about cleaning up some things too." There was a chuckle, followed by Marcus's low voice, "Yeah, one last cleanup." Ethan felt his stomach twist, though he couldn't explain why. He forced a small laugh, a reflex, and took the trash bag from under the counter. The weight of it felt heavier than usual. He walked toward the back hallway, the one that led to the dumpsters outside. The jazz track ended, leaving only the hum of the refrigerator and the faint dripping of water from a tap. The air had thickened, like something unseen was waiting in it. Through the kitchen door window, he could see them. Marcus leaned close to Dana, whispering, while Luis and Tasha nodded. Dana's expression was serious now, her playful charm replaced by something colder. Ethan slowed his pace, letting his hand rest on the trash bag's handle. Then he heard it, just one sentence, cutting through the hum like a knife. "We'll make it look like food poisoning." The words froze him mid-step. For a moment, he thought he'd misheard. His mind tried to dismiss it as restaurant talk, maybe a dark joke, maybe frustration. But then Dana added softly, "He won't even see it coming." Ethan's throat went dry. His reflection in the glass looked ghostly pale under the flickering light. Behind that glass, the four of them stood close together, whispering faster now, voices merging into a hiss of conspiracy. He felt the first tremor of horror crawl up his spine. The Velvet Fork suddenly didn't feel like the restaurant he knew. The air smelled different, not of rosemary and wine, but of something sour, something tainted. He stepped back slowly, every instinct urging him to leave, but his legs wouldn't move. His mind was caught between disbelief and dawning realization. The laughter that had once annoyed him now seemed sinister, each echo laced with malice. Their closeness, their secrecy, it all made sense now. He forced himself to breathe, to think. If they were serious, if this wasn't just talk, he needed proof. He needed to survive the night without drawing attention. He couldn't let them see that he'd heard. The kitchen door creaked open, suddenly. Dana poked her head out, her smile painted on too quickly. "You're still here?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan replied, forcing calm. "Just finishing up." "Good." Her eyes lingered on him a little too long. "Don't stay too late." She disappeared again, and the door swung shut. Ethan waited until their voices resumed, then turned to the window beside the alley door. Outside, rain had started to fall, faint and steady. His reflection shimmered against the glass, tired eyes, trembling hands. The words repeated in his head, circling like a dark melody, "We'll make it look like food poisoning." He exhaled slowly, his breath fogging the window. The faint smell of gas and bleach mixed in the air, and the golden lights above seemed to dim slightly. He looked around the empty dining room, chairs stacked like tombstones, shadows stretching long and thin across the floor. For the first time in years, the Velvet Fork felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by the living. Ethan stood there for a long moment, listening to the laughter on the other side of the door, laughter that now sounded like something waiting to kill. He clenched the trash bag tighter, turned off the light above the counter, and whispered under his breath, "Something's wrong here." Then he walked out into the rain, the door closing softly behind him, the echo of those words still crawling through the dark. The following night, the Velvet Fork shimmered under its chandeliers, all warmth and polish on the surface. Crystal glasses chimed. Forks touched plates in polite rhythms. To any diner, it was another elegant evening. But Ethan could sense something wrong beneath the noise, a pulse of unease hidden behind the smiles. He moved between tables with practiced grace, refilling wine, collecting empty plates, forcing the calm mask he wore every night. His heart, though, was a quiet storm. Every sound, a laugh, a whispered order, seemed sharper, like the world had turned up its volume. From the corner of his eye, he caught Marcus at the stove, stirring a sauce with absurd care, his gaze flicking often toward the wine rack that lined the back wall. Dana stood behind the bar, her movements slow and deliberate, polishing glass after glass that was already spotless. Each time a customer left, she leaned close to Luis, her lips barely moving. Ethan couldn't catch every word, but fragments slipped through the clatter, "The right night, almost ready." His hands began to sweat. He wiped them on his apron and kept moving, pretending not to notice. Every instinct screamed that something irreversible was about to happen. Mr. Caldwell emerged briefly from his office, greeting guests with the same gruff charm that kept them loyal. To the staff, his presence was a burden; to the customers, it was proof that the owner still cared. Ethan watched him laugh, watched Marcus's jaw tighten behind the kitchen window, watched Dana's fake smile stretch a little too far. The clock above the bar ticked toward 10:30. The dinner crowd thinned. Chairs scraped, tips were counted, and the scent of roasted garlic faded into the heavier smell of detergent and leftover wine. As the others cleaned half-heartedly, Ethan decided he wouldn't leave tonight. He told Marcus he needed extra time to restock the pantry. Marcus barely looked at him, just grunted, "Lock up when you're done." By midnight the restaurant was a different world. The glow from the dining room dimmed, leaving pockets of shadow. The rain had started again, soft against the windows. In the kitchen, voices murmured, low, urgent. Ethan stepped quietly into the narrow pantry and switched off the small overhead light. Only the bluish glow from his phone remained. He positioned himself near the thin plaster wall separating the pantry from the kitchen and held his breath. The first words were muffled, then clear enough to freeze him. Marcus's voice: "He drinks it every night, same glass, same bottle." Dana: "The Merlot. Vintage 87. He keeps it in that rack, third shelf." Luis: "You sure it'll work fast?" Marcus: "Trust me. He'll finish the glass before it even hits him." Silence. Then a faint rustle of papers. Tasha's nervous tone: "And the documents? The transfer?" Dana: "Already signed. Just needs a death certificate to make it official." Ethan's hand trembled so hard the phone nearly slipped from his grip. He forced himself to stay still. Every muscle screamed to run, but he knew that one sound could end him. Then came the sentence that turned fear into terror. Marcus said, "And if anyone asks how it happened, it's on Ethan. The quiet one. The one who's always around the drinks." Perfect story. Ethan's stomach knotted. He felt sick, trapped between four walls and a truth too dangerous to reveal. They were going to kill Caldwell and blame him. The room seemed to shrink around him, the shelves closing in like jaws. He opened his phone's voice recorder. A red light blinked faintly in the dark. Each word from the kitchen poured into it: the plan, the laughter, the casual cruelty. His pulse thudded in his ears, matching the steady rhythm of the rain. Dana's voice softened. "We do it Friday. He always stays late to finish his accounts. We'll toast to the future, then it's over." The sound of a cork popping made Ethan flinch. He imagined their faces, the excitement, the greed, the unspoken relief of seeing their tyrant gone. But beneath their plan he heard something else: emptiness. The kind that makes people mistake power for peace. When their voices faded and footsteps moved toward the back exit, Ethan stayed hidden. Minutes dragged into half an hour before he dared to breathe normally. The phone kept recording, capturing only the slow drip of a leaking pipe. Finally, he stopped it and played back a few seconds. Their voices were faint but clear enough, proof that could save a life or end his own. He tucked the phone into his apron and leaned against the wall, trying to steady his breath. His reflection in the small freezer door looked ghost pale, eyes wide and hollow. He couldn't confront them. Not yet. If he did, they'd know. Marcus was strong, Dana ruthless, Luis easily led. They would silence him before Caldwell ever took another sip of wine. So he planned in silence. Tomorrow he would act normal. Smile. Serve. Pretend ignorance until he found a way to protect himself and warn Caldwell without suspicion. He pushed open the pantry door. The kitchen was empty, lights dimmed to a dull orange. Pots hung like silent witnesses above the prep tables. He crossed the floor carefully, half expecting one of them to step out of the shadows. Only the hum of the refrigerator greeted him. In the dining room, a few candles still flickered, their wax pooling like blood on the white tablecloths. He blew them out one by one. Each puff of smoke curled upward, ghost-like, before vanishing into the air. When he reached the bar, he paused by the wine rack, the one Marcus had mentioned. Third shelf, left side. The bottles gleamed in neat rows, identical at a glance, but one label looked slightly damp. Ethan touched it and felt a sticky residue near the cork. His stomach turned. They'd already prepared it. He didn't move the bottle, that would give him away. Instead, he wiped his hand on his apron and stepped back. The faint jazz tune still looping from the speakers felt wrong now, too soft for a place planning a murder. He glanced toward Caldwell's office door, its glass panel dark. The man had left hours ago, unaware that death was already waiting for him inside his own restaurant. Ethan felt a pang of pity, not admiration, not loyalty, just the basic ache of watching another human walk blindly into danger. The clock read 1:23 a.m. The world outside was asleep, but Ethan couldn't leave yet. He needed a plan of his own. He walked back to the pantry, grabbed a notebook used for inventory, and wrote a single line across the first page: "They plan to poison him through the Merlot. I have proof." He dated it, folded the page, and hid it behind the flour sacks. Insurance. When he finally stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The alley smelled of wet concrete and stale wine. He drew in a long breath, trying to wash the stench of fear from his lungs. Somewhere deep inside, resolve replaced panic. Tomorrow he would serve them as if nothing had happened. He would smile when Dana teased him, laugh at Marcus's crude jokes, refill their glasses with steady hands. But every move, every glance would be calculated. He would watch. Record. Collect. Because now he understood the rules: silence was survival, observation his only weapon. As he locked the restaurant door, the metal bolt clicked like a gun being loaded. The streetlight threw his shadow long across the pavement. For a fleeting moment, he saw two versions of himself in that silhouette, the waiter everyone ignored and the witness no one suspected. He turned away and began the walk home. The night was thick with the scent of rain and betrayal, and in his pocket, the phone felt heavier than it should, a small, humming vault of truth. Tomorrow the show would go on, but behind every smile at the Velvet Fork, the countdown had already begun. The sky cracked open long before the first scream. Rain pounded the glass windows of the Velvet Fork with unrelenting fury, sheets of water blurring the view outside. Each thunderclap rolled through the building like an omen. Inside, the restaurant glowed faintly, a fragile pocket of warmth against the storm. It was nearly closing time, and the dining room stood empty except for the soft His voice was rough, almost trembling. "I know what I'm doing," she snapped, though her hand shook slightly as she poured. Ethan's heart pounded. He could feel the pulse in his fingertips. The plan was in motion, theirs and his. Everything depended on seconds now. The bottle touched the counter with a soft clink. Dana straightened, exhaled, and forced a smile that looked stretched too tight. Marcus gave her a curt nod. Together, they watched as she picked up the glass, balancing it carefully on a silver tray. Ethan's mouth felt dry. He wiped the same spot on the counter for the 10th time, pretending not to notice her. The thunder growled above. The minute hand crept forward. 11:47. Dana walked toward the office, heels clicking in perfect rhythm with the ticking clock. Ethan watched her disappear down the narrow hallway, her reflection gliding across the glass panes. For a moment, he saw Marcus smirk, confident that everything was falling into place. In the office, light spilled through the frosted window. A shadow moved, Caldwell's. The door opened slightly. Dana's voice floated out, smooth and rehearsed. "One last glass before the storm swallows the night, sir." A pause, then Caldwell's gruff chuckle. "You always know how to end the day right, Dana." Her silhouette stepped inside. The door clicked shut. Ethan couldn't see them now, only faint movement through the glass, her hand offering the drink, his reaching to take it. Every muscle in Ethan's body tightened. He stood frozen behind the counter, eyes locked on the door, breath shallow. Lightning flashed, lighting the restaurant white for a heartbeat. Then darkness. Then thunder again, louder, closer. A second passed. Then another. Then the sound came, the soft clink of a glass being set down. Ethan waited. The silence stretched thin, unbearable.